Okay, taking a look at the major draft that you submitted. I think you've made a lot of progress. There's still some things we can fix up though, and some big picture stuff for you to try to keep track of. Right on the first page at the end of the first paragraph, I mentioned something that I think is a big picture thing you need to keep track of. Say, and I don't want this just to be me reading comments to you, but part of the issue is that you're trying to cram 3 articles into space allotted for just one. Some of the blame on this is for me, because I've been so far looking at things at the sentence level, not thinking about the bigger picture. But you're reaching far and wide here, and there is a certain type of student, you strike me as that type, where every paper has to answer, all the questions for all time. It's difficult to do, and a lot of times every time pretty much, you're going to be better off narrowing it down. I talk about keeping it simple. I'm also thinking keep it simple and focused. It makes for better writing. It makes for the reader having a better experience. You're putting the space between punctuation and footnotes. Stop it. Don't do that. That's not a good idea. Again, it reflects on the writer, and the reader looks at it. The reader who knows that there shouldn't be a space, so looks at it and just says tut tut, and wonders what peasant you had for a writing instructor, and I don't want to be in that position. A lot of the comments I've made in here, when it gets to be better writing, my work is easier. I don't have to work as hard, and you'll notice, something you can sort of keep track of is notice how many of my comments are just changing a word or a small grouping of words. Those are light comments. Those mean things are getting better in terms of the writing that you're doing. It goes faster for me, and also it just belies the fact that your writing is getting better. Middle of the first paragraph, there's a longer comment I talk about. I changed some of the words, and I talk right before footnote 2, and I talk about how there's a difference between POW statute and enemy combatant status. That kind of detail is something you need to look after. But again, I note how many of these, in the introduction, how many of the comments are going to just changing a word or two. And even some of that stuff is at times can merely be suggestive. It may not be absolutely wrong the way you've done it. I may just be saying, or you could try this, or you could try this. I probably need to come up with some symbol in the future that I use to give people a hint that I'm just offering a style comment, not necessarily a hard and fast rule. Need some explanation for what shifted profiles means. You have a few cluster of words at the end of page 1. Counterintelligence, caught by Grammarly. Analyze, misspelled, caught by Grammarly. Martyrdom, caught by Grammarly. I'm wondering how that happened. I'm guessing there was just some kind of a mix-up there. You've decided to not do inline citations. You're doing things with footnotes. That's not the recommendation here, or it's not even recommended, it's required. I want inline text citation for things that come from your main articles. Stuff you have from outside, you did a nice job of footnoting. That's all fine, but the stuff that's inside of the closed universe of research cases, I want you to cite in line with the text as I've shown you how to do. So the Schindler article and so on, and whatnots. Some of these footnote comments, you need the URLs, the truncated URLs. Go to bit.ly.com to do that. Getting into the literature review now. This was some of your best writing in the semester. You've added more subsections, which I'm not going to discourage you from. I'm a fan of subsections, so that's fine. Be aware with signposting. It's not. There's a thing called meta discourse, Meta-discourse is when my writing is about my writing. And I go into detail, say, first I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about, then I'm going to talk about the other. And it goes on and on and on. Research in cognitive laboratories have shown that people actually don't respond well to that. It doesn't help readers out as much as you would think. Signposting's okay. Don't do it to death. Signposting, when it goes too far, lapses into meta-discourse. So you're on a nice edge here. I think we're okay with the way you've done it. Yeah, I guess I'll say you're better off going with more guidance for the reader than less, particularly because you're into a complex topic and you're biting off a lot here. In any event, this is the some of the really good writing you've done this semester. Note little details like when you put a decade, the 60s, the 80s, you don't put an apostrophe in there unless you're talking about something belonging to those decades. The spirit of the 70s, I think, is in my comment. That's not even that. The 70s spirit. That's something that belonged to the decade. You have to think about it explicitly that way too. What else have I got here? Empty comment. That's not helpful. Keep track of the this and that stuff. That's something that gives a lot of writers at your level, at the college level, trouble. I guess you'll clean up this United States thing. At the beginning of your second article summary, Herliger, I'm again going on with inline citations needed. I note right there, you got to keep that, like on the first line there, policing terrorism in Israel. You've got to have the comma inside of the quotation marks there. That is absolutely essential. Again, I guarantee it. People who know how to write, look at that, and you only have so long you're going to have somebody's attention. If they start to conclude that you're sloppy and don't care, again, neither of which are good things for a writer, they're going to put your writing aside and move on to someone else's. How many times in your lifetime are you going to have your writing in front of somebody who really has the power to change things, right? Most of us, not that often, not as often as we'd like. So you're going to get a limited number of chances. Make them count. And if your work is accepted and has and they're able to use it for something, then you're going to get another chance and another chance, and your chances multiply. But if you're one of these people, like most of us, who get a limited number of chances and you don't capitalize on them, your writing lets you down, then you're eventually going to be dead-ended. It matters. If you're following along, I'm at the top of page 4 at this stage. You mentioned the KGB earlier, didn't give a definition for who they are. I guess most people know who the KGB is. I like to be thorough. And they're now something else, FS something. The name has changed, I think. Some of these subsections you have seem like a little bit of overkill. The one for thwarting terrorist action is one paragraph, but again, I'm going to let it slide. I think, particularly given your tendency to become over-involved, it's probably a good thing to try to keep things simple like this. Looking at your last section there, civilian infrastructure restoration, again, it's just impressive. I don't have a lot of comments in there. And they're not heavy-handed comments either. Article 3 you've orphaned at the bottom of the page. I want to check my timing here. Yeah, I got to start a new video. Alright, coming right back.